Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the AU show. It's your boy Adi. Today we have a very special guest. He's based in Dallas, Texas. He is our three-time Belgian Horse of the Year, aka Iron Man. He's also a financial professional, and he's cooking up some great content. So, would love to welcome to the show my great friend Andre Lafleur. Lafleur,
Thank you
welcome.
so much. Thank you so much for having me, Adidon. Man, I appreciate you having me on this test episode or first episode. It means a lot to me. I'm excited to be able to talk.
Absolutely, man. Wouldn't have anyone else. Andre was one of the first guys I actually met through the standard who actually like showed love, and he does everyone's birthday somehow. I don't know how, but he does everyone's birthday. So that just gets to show you, no matter how busy and how much growth he experiences, he always makes time for folks he cares about. So yeah, man, cool. I always love to kick off these conversations just from the beginning, man. So Andre, if you have to describe yourself, man, like as a kid, growing up in New York, would you say you were more of like the quiet kid who just observed everything? Were you the one causing chaos? I have a hunch, but I have to verify.
Yeah, I appreciate you and that great question. So it's kind of funny. As a kid, I was one that was always quiet because I was heavily insecure about other people's thoughts and how they would think about me, right?
Right.
I was always observing my surroundings. I was always taking a look at people and how they moved people. But in the background, like when I think about like what I was doing at home, I was living with my mom, obviously, and my couple siblings I was living with. Yeah, both my brothers, Eddie, and then I have another brother. His actual name is Eddie, and then I was living with my sister before she had moved out. And as a kid, like in the background, as I mentioned, I was always one that was inspired by motivational speakers, wrestlers, basketball players. My favorite players, Kobe Bryant, rest in peace. So like I was always moved by entertainment. I always knew that there was something special about those guys in particular. What I admired about them the most is the fact that they were able to move a crowd. Right? So when you even think about like wrestlers, for example, you have like the baby face, which is like the yay, and you have the heel, which is like the boo. But I was amazed whether you be baby face or heel, how you had such a strong emotion on a fan. Even me, as somebody who was always watching wrestling, like I always hated, I don't want to say hated, but there were certain wrestlers that I hated that I knew in person or in real life they were good people, but they played their character so well. They were able to move the emotions of the fans so well. I was so amazed. So when I think about it, like as a kid, in front of a lot of people, I was shy, I was insecure, I was mostly on the quiet side. Like the way you see me now, I was not like that as a kid. Honestly, it's a complete 180. But then at home, I was mainly somebody who was always moved by like motivational speakers, as I mentioned, wrestlers, entertainers, good entertainers at that. So to me, man, that's really who I was as a kid, and I always tried to figure out like how could I be able to move people? How could I be able to impact people? On a consistent basis, I was always doing push-ups just so that way I could be able to get that motivation within myself, inspire myself first, because I knew it started within myself and my internal beliefs.
What a gem. And I did not know Andre loved wrestling that much. So that's what I'm learning.
I was a
That's a
nerd,
fun
man.
fact. Push ups make sense, man. This guy can do 100 push ups just breathing. So it's cool, man. But yeah, I didn't know. So yeah, growing up in a household with like three siblings, man, I guess, were you the middle kid, the younger kid, I guess the oldest? Where do you fall in the LaFleur household?
Yeah, so for me and it was just my mom. I lost my dad when I was turning 10. So this is 2000. I was turning 12 that year, and this was in 2010. And, it was really just my mom putting all the food on all of our plates. Fortunately, my older sister, before she had moved out, she was older. So she knew how to take care of herself. So she was good. And I was the second to last child, right? So, being like living with my older sister, living with my older brother, like they were always taking care of me, always sharing wisdom. I love the both of them to the death of me. Great things about them. They were the ones who helped my mom in raising me, after I lost my father. Always stayed consistent within the church in terms of bringing me to church. I grew up Seventh-day Adventist, and they really instilled in me the belief in Christ. And what I really loved about my older brother and my sister was the fact that they made me find Christ within myself, right? Not just necessarily bringing me to church because they have to or I'm forced to be in church, but I found Christ at such an early age. So in the household, it was a Christian household. I would say we were average, right? But we weren't like rich or anything like that. I would say we were like right below middle class, honestly speaking, because my mom, she had to really work a lot of hours, especially given the fact that after my father passed, she had to kind of be the breadwinner of the house. So for me, like it was something that as I got older, I started realizing how much work it actually took my mom and how much she was getting paid and stuff like that. So living in the household itself, it wasn't a terrible experience, but it wasn't a bad experience at all if I really reflect on it. One thing I would say is though, we grew up very fortunate to even see plates of food, on a daily basis, right? So to me, like again, like I didn't really live in like a rich environment, uh, right below middle class, I would say, because my mom was really grinding. To me, like we really kept the household religious in a good place. Shout out to my older brother for that, and yeah, that's how it was like living in my house. My younger brother Eddie, as you know, always playing 2K, always playing video games. We obviously went to high school. We really locked into school. We made sure that we was getting busy in school because we valued good grades, but not even just good grades, but learning as well too. We needed our brains to be very sharp, just so that way we could be able to articulate certain ideas or even just speak to other people properly. I love math. I was a math nerd. That's why I kind of leaned into finance eventually over time. I love numbers and it just came natural to me. A lot of subjects that people hated, like trigonometry, geometry, like I just loved it. Just became second nature for me to be able to understand these topics. So just to answer your question or kind of go in a full circle, it was a great experience, man. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the richest, I would say, but I learned a lot from living in an environment like Brooklyn, New York, and that household. It was a blessed household. A lot of memories in that house.
Absolutely no. I love the way you walked through that journey, man. I think the things that stood out to me, was one, faith. Having that still at a young age, and even to your point, with all the adversity you've faced, the gratitude. I think sometimes we get so caught up in our day to day, like, oh, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. We forget as long as you have a roof over your head, you got family that loves you, you got plate, a couple meals a day, like you're doing pretty good compared to a lot of people. So I love that. And so I think, with that, man, you highlighted about how you got into finance later, but I think given your circumstances you were facing in life at that time and, also wanting to drive an impact in the world, like what was Andre thinking at that point, like what I want to do with my life? Like, were you trying to pursue sports? Was there something else you like really gravitated towards in terms of what I want to do when I grow up at that age?
Yeah. So when it came down to high school, I was playing basketball, and for me, when I look back at it now, of course, I wanted to be able to go to the NBA. But what really held me back was kind of what I shared earlier. I cared too much about what people thought about me. I feel like that really held me back to go into taking things to the next level. As you know, when it comes to just anything in life, there are always going to be people who are going to have their thoughts. They're going to have, their opinions, right? But you have to learn how to not only just ignore the bad ones, but sometimes figure out ways to use it to make you better. But I honestly used it just to put me down and have certain negative beliefs about myself that I started believing in, right? So I was playing basketball. Eventually, that didn't really work out. Then I was thinking to myself, I'm like, man, I'm so good at math. I love math. I'm going to be a mathematician. So I started researching like different things I could be able to do with this knowledge of math. What does a mathematician actually look like? Then eventually I got into becoming an actuary, right? This is something that I was really doing deep research in during the end of high school. And there's people who just, long story short, are really very, very good at statistics. So I thought about that route, couldn't really make that route because, as you know, your junior year of high school, you have to do extremely well in order to get a good college, to get into a good college. Junior year, I did well. towards the end, I was starting to fall off just a little bit just because of bad habits, being extremely negative, just following the wrong people. And getting into 12th grade, I kind of lost that desire a little bit, right? Then once my grades weren't doing, I couldn't get into the actuarial science major that I wanted to get into with the colleges I was trying to get into at the time. So then I was like, okay, like let me just do something pretty simple. The college I went to, I was studying liberal arts, very, very simple. Then I was like, you know what? Like, I really like finance. I really like studying finance. At this time where I thought about finance, I was in Florida, already moved and everything like that. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna tap into this. Got into the major. Man, it's like a full-time job within itself. Like studying for the
Right.
major, making sure that you're doing everything that you have to do in terms of exams and everything. And on top of that, I was beginning to take care of the house, beginning to take care of my mom. So I was like, okay, I need to choose an easier major. Chose business and information systems, IT related. For me, it was like very, very easy. So, and it allowed me to be able to balance that while having a full time job, while being able to take care of the house. Because at the time, it was just me, my mom, my brother hadn't moved in yet. And I was like, cool, I could be able to do that. But I still, in the background, had a deep passion for finance, right? Was
Right.
always looking at YouTube University with Graham Stephan, Andre Jick, Jeremy Lafave. If you know, you know. And I was just studying a lot of finance, man, a lot of finance, a lot of finance. Eventually, I graduated school, and I was for the longest, honestly, even while I was in college, trying to get into J.P. Morgan Chase, and the interviews just kept flopping and flopping. Was not doing well on some of them, or I thought I did well, but I still didn't get the job. Then next thing you know, this was around the end of 2021, the standard came, and I eventually met a guy. Shout out to my guy Justin. I met Justin. I don't know if you knew him, Adidan, but I met Justin, and he used to work for Fidelity, right? So,
Right.
as me and him got extremely close, he was just kind of sharing me how he used to work for Fidelity. He was listening to my passion in finance, and he helped me get into Fidelity investment. Once I got into Fidelity, provided me the opportunity, extremely grateful for them to be able to study for the SIE, Series 7, Series 63. They'll pay for everything. They'll pay for the training. They'll pay for taking the exam. And then from there, like, I just started doing well on the exams. I started getting certain positions as well too, within Fidelity. And then I had to study for my Series 66 to officially become an advisor. And then here I am today. So when it comes to finance, like that passion kind of like finance in particular, not just like numbers or math, but finance in particular, that passion arose when I moved to Florida. It was just me and my mom, and I pretty much just had to be the man of the house, right? I don't have my sisters, I don't have my brothers, it's literally just me and my mom. And I'm like, man, like I have to understand finances on a deeper level, right? Like I have to understand what investing looks like on a deeper level because I love my mom, but she was not blessed like how we are to learn financial literacy. Like the amount of access of information that we have in today's day and age, she didn't have. All she knew was work, right? I
Right.
believe she didn't even have like a 401k, right? She was just trying to put some food on the table for us. So once I learned about all of that, learned about like her finances and things of that nature, I knew I had to step up. I knew I had to be able to learn about financial literacy and not only just apply it to my life, but eventually once Eddie moved to Florida, I had to put him on game to everything that I learned so that way he could apply for his life. And now I'm seeing him thrive at such a young age as well too. So, it kind of arose in me, kind of pushed in me by God to be able to learn these things and make sure that the household was in a good place.
That's awesome. I think there's a couple of key things that, one, man, I think a lot of people, sports, when it doesn't work out, like that's a huge blow to their identity. So the fact that you're still able to take that same commitment and drive and find a different vehicle to where, one, it's situational, but you figured out what you really liked and you double down on it. I think a lot of times people will dabble, but they won't really go all in. And so to see that you've taken that interest and, create a career out of it, props to you. And I know you're going to do a lot of great things there. So I'm curious, man. I think at Fidelity, right? I think as an outsider, we hear, obviously I use a product like Fidelity, for retirement solutions, but what is it like to work at a company like Fidelity? Like, what's the culture like there?
Man, it's awesome. I think the culture, when I think about it, they say that F in fidelity stands for flexibility, right? Or just being
Right.
flexible. They're extremely flexible. I think the clients that we have at Fidelity are amazing. They're gracious, and I'm blessed for the opportunity to be able to educate a lot of clients on the importance of financial planning, things on like target date fund, target allocation fund, or even just like managed accounts, right? There are people or clients that I tend to run into that literally have no idea about finances, similar to my mom. And there are clients that I tend to talk to who don't have any sort of plan set in place, right? So
Right.
I'm thankful that Fidelity has provided me with the tools and resources to be able to educate these type of clients because, at the end of the day, if you're not financially literate to some capacity, you can fall behind. So I'm just thankful that Fidelity not only was able to take care of my licenses, take care of investing in me, take care of me going through my master's program at this very moment, but they provide me with the tools and resources on a daily basis to advise clients effectively. So being at Fidelity is nothing but a blessing. I mean, a lot of other great advisors for different opportunities to be able to network with other people, not just in the corporate office, but also at the branches too. And it's just awesome. It's really great to be able to be in a space where you're constantly learning, you're constantly thriving, you're meeting and interacting with different kinds of people, and you're understanding what you can put in your own arsenal because, even just today, I'm learning from a different advisor how he's talking to clients, what his process looks like, right? Like how he's able to help clients not only bring in money but invest money as well too, just to see their financial future get a little bit more, give them a little bit more financial confidence about what they have going on. So it's a learning curve at this very moment. There's a lot of things that I'm still learning, but I'm grateful to be in that environment where Fidelity offers the opportunity to be able to teach us more and more.
Absolutely. Now, a question I had for you, having gone through college and now you're doing your master's, so congrats on that.
Thank
What's
you.
the difference then between learning in a structured environment, so like college where you have a set path of like these are the courses you take to graduate, versus learning and applying things in your career, right? Because you're constantly learning, and we live in a world now with AI where I'm curious to get your thoughts on too, like how that's going to shift the world of finance. But there's, especially for you, there's like constant regulations, like licenses you have to pass to stay ahead of the curve and be able to be that value add to clients. Like, what was that shift for you? Or do you feel like there's a lot of parallels that apply to both school and work?
Man, I think for me, it's a lot of parallels because I work in the corporate office, right? So I'm interacting with different advisors all the time, different people in different departments. Similar to school, the way how the corporate office is set up, it's a campus, right? So I'm always seeing people moving around. I'm always seeing people interact with each other, right? But even when I think about college, it's the same way. And I think it's amazing to have this setup, especially now since we're going into the office 2 weeks out of the month, because it allows more face to face interaction. When COVID hit, it eliminated a lot of that, which honestly getting out of COVID, it hindered a lot of our communication skills, even just eye to eye contact, saying certain words, or just how you move and certain body language, right? Physiology, things of that nature. I think to me, when I think about like the campus life in college, that brought a lot of those things. And once COVID hit, it was bad for a lot of people that were just growing up and that was or even kids, right? Who were just in that time because they don't really know or understand the importance of communication. So it was a lot of different parallels. I think I've never really had like a job or a time in my life where I was really not seeing or interacting with a lot of people, in the same setting. Probably the only time I could think about was when I had COVID and I had to do classes. But
Right.
still, like my job I was working at the time, which is Publix, I was always around people, always seeing people. So for me in my life and my experience, I've always been around people, whether it be in school on campus or at work at the corporate office. So it's a lot of different parallels to answer your question. And I think to me, like, I'm super excited to see how the future is going to go because there's going to be a lot of growth in terms of, in my opinion, if we continue to push for it, especially in the standard, a lot of growth in human interaction. And people are going to understand why it's so important and they're going to continue to push for it as well, I believe.
Absolutely, man. No, I think when you, especially when you're around the guys in the standard, and when you're on the right group of people, it's usually your cup gets filled, right? It's a charge up. You feel like your battery pack is, you're ready to go. Than not. And so no, I totally agree with that. I'm curious, having been in the space for a little bit now, with all these rumblings, and you're seeing how fast AI is evolving. Like, I guess, how do you feel like that affects like your ability to serve clients, and I guess too, like, how do you feel like you have to operate differently potentially? Let's say in the next year and years to come.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the growth of AI has been amazing. I think it's a great tool to be able to allow you to enhance your skill set. And to me, we have to be able to accept the change that's going on. I'm not really using it right now as an advisor like, all the time because Fidelity has like certain rules on using ChatGPT, for example. We do have like a different AI type of thing we can use. Like I don't really use it, but when I do use it, it's pretty useful. So to me, I think even just when I'm using it outside of work, it does wonders, right? And if we're not accepting the change that's going to happen within the next decade or, based on how fast technology is moving within the next 2 to 5 years, then we'll be left behind. We have to be able to accept the change that's going on, figure out ways to apply it to our skill set and our personal lives to enhance our lives and take things to the next level. So, like I said earlier, it's a time to be alive. This is the information. This is a bunch of information being pushed out, especially within the past decade, and things are coming faster and faster. So something that would have taken like 100 years to come, now it's probably taking like 33 years to come, or even 10 years to come, or 5 years to come, right? And so you start realizing it's only a matter of time before certain things start, I wouldn't say taking over the world, but it's being heavily used. So if you're not using it, then you're going to be left behind. Things are going to be falling to your disadvantage, and it's not going to be able to help you move forward or progress. If that answers your question.
Absolutely. I think you just have to embrace the mentality of just being a lifelong learner. That doesn't apply to one pillar in life. That's across the board. And I think as long as you embrace that, I think you'll be fine. Like, just holistically, like across for everyone, right? So awesome. I know. I think too, just switching lanes a little bit. I know, man. You grew up playing ball. You're always, into sports, right? But I think as you've navigated now into your adult life with like work and other things you're balancing, I guess, was it always a priority, like even throughout college and things, like stay in the best shape, or is that something that you realize later on and like you've now refound that purpose of like prioritizing fitness in your day to day?
Man, I always thought it was important to stay in shape. Always. Like, even back to when I was like 11, 12, 13, doing push ups at home like crazy because I couldn't walk into a gym yet, had to be 16. I always thought it was important. And my father, he passed from pneumonia. So I realized, like, with his life, he didn't he didn't prioritize his health. Like, it wasn't terrible. Like, my dad, he wasn't like I would say, like, he wasn't out of shape or anything, but when he was younger, he had like a accident that happened to where like his lungs were pretty damaged, and ever since he got older, until it was too late, he didn't heavily prioritize his health. Right? So to me, that made me, I have people to impact. I have kids that I'm going to be a father one day. I'm going to be a grandfather. I'm going to be running around with my kids. I'm going to be running with grandkids. I got to be in the best shape possible. Right? I have to, like I was saying earlier, I have to be able to influence people. Right? Now people are kind of, especially my friends, they're kind of looking at me as like somebody that has a high level of impact, somebody that I could easily influence, right? So I think to me, I realized that, man, I have to always be in shape. Always have to be on point. Health matters. Health goes a long way. There are people who are suffering from a lot of things, especially at a young age, just simply because they're not taking care of their health. And sometimes some people might think, taking care of your health is just simply eating right or going to the gym. A lot of the times it's sleep too. That's what I'm learning right now.
Right.
I think if you're getting an adequate amount of rest, shout out to the Whoop that tells you that. If you're getting an adequate amount of rest on a day-to-day basis, it's gonna drop your cortisol levels to where you're not always stressed all the time. Right? And stress does a lot to not only your body but your mind. And right now, my mom is currently dealing with dementia, and a lot of that has to do with her stress levels, right? And for her, even for her, she's working all the time. She didn't really prioritize the gym or fitness at all. So we're seeing like a massive, it was pretty rapid within the past 5 years, like a decline in her cognitive functioning, right? Even when it comes to dementia, like I was saying, at least for her, just noticing how much she stressed over time, sorry, it kind of caused a mental decline and a lot of minor strokes too. So to me, I started understanding like, hey, Dre, you have to make sure that you're prioritizing your health to the best of your ability at almost all the time. Whether that be sleeping, eating right, or even just going to the gym 4 to 5 days out of the week. Because stuff like that will make sure that you could be able to live a long lasting, impactful life. I believe that everybody should be able to have the opportunity to live until 80, 90, 100 and still feeling good. And that's possible. It just all starts with the decisions that you have to make today.
Another powerful gem there, man. No, I totally agree. I think you got to really focus on controlling the controllables. And I think with that, man, I'm just curious. I think as you mentioned, like your vision of driving a huge impact, and part of that, whether it's with the standards, the networks you're in now. I think part of the social life. I think people connect with this, going to grab drinks or eating out, and so I'm curious, man, how have you found that balance of navigating whether it's like saying no to certain social outings because you have to hit your gym at 4 a.m. This guy's got in the
Yeah.
gym at 3:30 sometimes. I'm not
Yeah.
kidding. Check his Instagram. So how do you balance, I think that aspect of having a social life, but also creating boundaries to where your environment's aligned with your goals and
Yeah,
finding
man.
the
I
right people
think
that support that?
that's a great point. I think to me, I stopped believing in like balance. I more so believe in integration. So what that means is you can shout out to my boy Mike. I'll shout him out. Me and my boy Mike Hoptack out in Dallas, we used to hit the gym every morning at 5 a.m. Right? Not only am I getting my fitness life right, but I'm also doing well in my social life. Every day we're talking about just life in between reps and this, that, and the third. And then I also tell myself, Dre, how bad do you want it? There's gonna be times I'm gonna be invited out, right? But then I have to wake up super early the next day, have to get enough sleep as I was mentioning earlier. And I have to just say no because one, I don't want to get to a place where I know that I could have performed better if I just had enough sleep. Right?
Hmm.
All on me, all on my decision, right? All on my decision making. If I know it's my fault that something didn't happen or something did happen and it didn't turn out the way that I wanted it to be or it's supposed to be or allowing me to perform well, I'm going to be super down on myself. So like if I don't know if you ever had like a coach, right? Who's really really tough on you. I have that coach within myself and that coach is me. Like my brain always has voices, not in a crazy way, telling myself that Dre, you could have done better. You could have made the best decision. And to be honest, just like everybody else, I don't want to hear that coach yelling at me, right? So I have to make sure that I'm always on point. Obviously, it's not to say I don't go out at all, go out. But I think to me, there are seasons, right? There are different times where you can be able to go and there are times where you're not going to be able to go out because you're prepping for certain things. So for me right now, like I'm prepping for this half marathon, it's very, very important that I get a good amount of sleep. Still trying, right? But there's a lot of times where I get invited to certain things and I just can't make it at that moment because I know for sure if I go on a run tomorrow and my hips feel a little bit funny or my hamstrings feel a little bit funny while I'm on that run, I'm gonna tell myself, "Yo, Dre, you could have said no to that outing. You could have caught like 8, 9 hours of sleep, and you wouldn't have been able to feel this way, right?" So I started understanding, like, hey, there are different ways you could be able to integrate certain things within your life, like going to the gym with a friend or two or three, right? Like even with the standard, we have like the gym events out here in Dallas, syncing up with a couple of the guys. Since I'm doing the standard, I'm gonna pull up to the events, right? The events that I put on. I'm gonna pull up to the events, meet the guys there. I'm there for like 2, 3 hours. Then I make sure that hey, I get back home, do what I have to do to prepare for my run if I haven't run already, or if I haven't ran already. And there's just different things that you could be able to integrate and put together within your life. And number two, man, just always asking myself, how bad do you want to drink? How bad do you want to perform well? How bad do you want to take things to the next level? Do you want to be complacent? And one of my biggest fears that I always talk about is I never want to get to my deathbed knowing and telling myself I could have done more in my life. Right? I never want to be too late or at the very end where I literally cannot do nothing and my thoughts are literally beating me up in my telling me, Dre, you could have done a lot more. Hey, you could have done this. Hey, you could have done that. Hey, you could have made a better decision here. So to me, I always tell myself these things, and once I started getting a great understanding of what they truly mean within me, things just started getting better, and I started getting a little bit more disciplined.
I love it, man. No, I think Ed Mylett has a quote similar to that too. It's I don't want to get to the end of my life where God said, hey, this is the light I created you in. You left a lot on the tank, left
Mm.
a lot to wonder. So I totally hear you on that, man. I'm just curious to, now fitness has always been part of your life. What inspired this new journey in terms of capturing, those moments, with content on a day-to-day basis? Again, the content's been fire. We know what's coming up next, but yeah, man, I guess what inspired that in you to like want to document this process?
Man, a lot of it was different friends just telling me in my ears these past few years, hey, you got a great physique. Hey, you need to be posting content. For me, it was never like I didn't want to do it. I just didn't have the time, but I didn't understand integration, right? Like I was talking about before. So it's like, hey, Dre, you go to the gym every day. You might as well just record it. It's not really, taking up too much time to like set up the tripod or whatever the case is. It's not taking that much time. You just record yourself working out. All right. Started thinking about these things, and my friends just kept telling me, hey, you need to post content, you need to post content. And then I also told myself, hey, it's always been your dream and your goal to be able to inspire a multitude of people. This is the greatest opportunity to be able to do so. Everybody's online, everybody's on Instagram, everybody's on Facebook, social media in general. Not on Facebook yet or anything like that, but everybody's on Instagram. So why don't you just put yourself on Instagram so that way you could begin that journey of impacting a lot of people? Right? And to me, that's what kind of pushed everything. And again, it's just my circle. Joe's been telling me for a while. A couple other friends has been telling me for a long time, especially Joe, that I should be able to get into it. And I was like, hey, man, why not? Let's see how this works. I know it's going to work. I'm very confident. And when it comes down to just anything in life, once I take it on, it's never my goal to be able to have it on the back burner, 3, 4 months down the line. I'm done. I'm slowing down. I'm always gonna figure out different ways I could be able to integrate this within my life more and more so I can have more of an impact because I'm very confident. It's not for me, it's not so much the money. I know the money's gonna come if it comes. But the real thing for me is just making sure that A, I could be able to impact people on a different level. And B, I can be and those brands are reaching out to me, not necessarily for money, but to make sure that hey, this is a nut they're putting me on their page to let me know that hey, here's a guy who's taking impact very seriously. Here's a guy that wants to be able to change your life in terms of fitness, right? In terms of how you're thinking about discipline and motivation, right? Let me put him on the map so people who are suffering from depression, anxiety, could see that and truly get inspired to be able to move their life and move their body as well.
Absolutely, man. No, I think just being genuine always comes out in the best light. I think in today's day and age, we do have that need to feel like, validated, really like kind of the forms of likes and followers. And I think a lot of times you see those people burn out because they never did it for something beyond themselves. So I love the why there. I'm just curious, man, that, in this space of content, who are some of the folks that you enjoy viewing their content in terms of like where you draw maybe inspiration from, or like, oh, I like how they did that. How can I apply that to, my content that I create?
Man, there's many different people. I think somebody that I've been closely watching and trying to emulate a little bit. In terms of content, I forget his name. I think one of them is Aaron Gage. These guys are not like crazy popular or anything like that, but they're like, I would say, Instagram famous. I'd say Aaron Gage and a couple other guys that are hybrid athletes. Now there are two guys in particular where I'm not trying to emulate their like the way how they edit or their content style per se, but I really look up to is Nick Bear, a hybrid athlete, crazy guy, father, husband, amazing man. And The Rock, I really like The Rock. I really rock with The Rock. Ever since the wrestling days, I wasn't watching him, or like I wasn't old enough to watch him when he was in his prime during the wrestling time in the 90s. But I think the way how The Rock is able to move the crowd, and even when he just comes out in the WWE, like a special guest appearance or some sort of run that he's about to do, you can see the emotion, you can hear the emotion through the TV screen or through your phone when you're watching it, how people feel about him. And to me, that's very inspirational. But now he posts content, but it's not like crazy content like 3 times a day, how we normally see it every day. But he's another guy in terms of inspiration that I really look up to. So it'd be Aaron Gage, two other guys that I can't remember at the moment. And then in terms of like just regular inspiration outside, a little bit outside of content, is Nick Beer and The Rock.
All right, man. Well, my challenge to you, man, is I think the people would love to see more of the vlog styles with you. I think
Yeah.
it's just we want to see it, man. I'm telling you. I
We'll
think
see. We'll see.
we need some more vlogs from Andre, especially with these
Yeah.
marathons coming up, man. But no, definitely want to be mindful of your time. Last question for you really is really around when it comes to the pillars of your life, your family, finance, like career, fitness, and what you're doing with the standard, man. Like, what are you excited most about for 2025? And what are some things you're excited that you're working on that you want to share with the folks as we wrap up?
Yeah, I think this year is gonna be the year of challenges for me. So I understood some people might agree, some people might not agree, but this is talked about a lot. I understood that the more you challenge yourself, the better you'll get, like everybody knows. So if you're putting yourself through something that's extremely uncomfortable, something that's unfamiliar, and you continue to push through it, obviously, doing it in the best manner, like making sure you're getting sleep and everything like that. For me, it's exercise and different things. Then you will for sure see another side or another. So for example, this year I'm super excited for not just my High Rocks challenge that I'm doing in March, not just the half marathon I'm running, not just the 325, but closer to the end of the year, I plan on doing a marathon, right? I also plan on doing, I forget the other challenge, but there's different challenges, different fitness challenges that I plan on doing. So those are the biggest things that I'm looking forward to in 2025. Seeing how I'm going to be able to conquer these challenges, what it's going to turn me into, and how much more of a leader I'm going to become. Because once people see the amount of challenges you've been able to conquer and stack up within your life, it's only, especially if they're in your close circle, it's only going to be able to take you to the next level. So once I conquer that half marathon, when I conquer that half marathon, people are going to see it, be like, man, I wasn't doing much. Let me at least run a mile today, right? People are going to see, hey, I benched the 325, I did the 320. Let me just at least walk into the gym today, right? People are going to
Right.
see the High Rocks Challenge being completed. They say, hey, let me at least walk on the treadmill, right? Let me do something that's going to transform and change my life, right? Again, I'm mainly doing it for just other people, just seeing how they could be able to transform and change their life for the better. But to me, man, that's the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to in 2025. All these challenges, everything that's gonna put me to the test, push me to the corner, things that are gonna make me uncomfortable, things that are gonna reveal more about myself that I probably did not know, and figure out different ways I could be able to fix them and become a better leader.
Amazing, man. We look forward to seeing the leveled up version of Andre, at the end of the year. But yeah, man, I lied. Final question: where can people find you? I know your goal is to drive a lot of impact, but where can folks tap in with you, keep up with your journey, and stay in touch?
Yes. Oh, sorry. So yeah, people can find me on Instagram. My Instagram is Dre Illis, DreEst. That's really it. That's really it. And that's it. Just find me on Instagram, Dre Illis, DreEst. Shoot me a follow. I'll shoot you a follow back. And let's continue to win.
Absolutely, brother. Appreciate the time, man. That's it, folks. Signing off from the AU show, and we'll all keep in touch and watch Andre's progress for the rest of the year.
Thank you, Aditan.